Testing. Test. action.
Hollow. Better. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Hialeah Planning and Zoning Board meeting for Wednesday, April 27, 2022. Everyone, please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. You want to do it or I want me to do it? You do it? Okay.
God, please watch over us as we try everything in our power to make the right decision on this board, not only for the community, but for pretty much everybody.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Meeting guidelines. The following guidelines apply to today's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Any person, whether participating via the web platform, telephonic conferencing, or physical presence at City Hall, interested in making comments or posing questions on any item on the agenda may do so during the meeting. Members of the public may hear the meeting live through telephonic conferencing using a telephone or cellular phone service. A smart device or computer are not necessary to participate in the meeting if you join by phone. All persons participating via the web platform will be muted during the meeting until called upon to be heard. Participation through Zoom requires a computer or smart mobile device with a microphone and web camera. The participant may elect to participate in the meeting using audio only or appear through both audio and video. The video function of all participants appeared through video will be turned off until called upon to be heard. All lobbyists must register with the Planning and Zoning Board prior to item being heard. A maximum 4 speakers in favor and 4 speakers in opposition will be allowed to address the Planning and Zoning Board on any item. Each speaker's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Roll call. Mr. Di Perez?
Here.
Mr. Gamon?
Here.
Mr. Iglesias?
Here.
Mr. Jimenez? Mr. Ulloa?
Here.
Mr. Casanova?
Here.
Mrs. Enriquez? Here. We have a quorum. Administration of oath to all applicants and anyone who will be speaking before the board on any item.
Anyone and everyone that will be speaking in front of the board, be it live or electronic, please stand, raise your right hand so we can swear you in. Thank you. I see you, Mr. Mestre. Are you the only one out there?
Wait, they didn't stand.
I-
¿Van a hablar? No, the back. Usted tiene un artículo hoy, ¿verdad? Y va a hablar. So, tiene
¿Usted
que...
usted tiene un caso esta noche? Póngase de pie, por favor. Apretar juramento. ¿Jura usted que va a decir la verdad, solamente la verdad, frente a esta junta? Thank you. Okay, I see you, Mr. Mestre. Let the record show that the answer was in the affirmative, and we do have everyone accounted and present for.
Summary minutes, copy of the audio file, the proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to the City Council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the City Council at its scheduled meeting of Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. LU1, small-scale amendment from commercial to transit-oriented development district. Property located at 1067 East 25th Street, Hialeah zoned C2, Liberal Retail Commercial District. Applicant BEC Housing Trust LLC.
Okay. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Maritza Haro with offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. On behalf of the applicant, this application has a companion item.
Thank you. He's gonna.
You wanna? Oh, okay. I just
I
wanted to
stand
say.
corrected.
No
Sorry,
worries.
go ahead.
She's the boss.
Yeah.
So this application has a companion zoning item. So I just wanted to, at the board's will, we'd be happy to present both together. It's item number 3.
close this part of the meeting and we open the other one. But after I read the recommendation, if you want to do a presentation for both, you can do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
The reason I stopped you is because usually we have applicants that come in and they identify themselves and they just
The whole presentation.
take off. and say, stop, let her do her part first, then
Absolutely.
you have all the time in the world.
Thank you.
So the property in this application is located at the northwest intersection of Eastern Avenue.
Deborah? Can't hear you.
My problem with the mic.
Make sure you light it on.
So let me start again.
Is
The
her light
property
on?
in this application, yes, it's on. The property in this application is located at the northwest intersection of East 25th Street and East 10th Avenue across the Hialeah Transfer Tri-Rail Metro Rail Station and within the Hialeah Transfer TOD. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use amendment from commercial to TOD in order to redevelop the site with a new mixed-use high-rise building in accordance with TOD regulations. The requested land use is consistent with Goal 4 and all related policies of and objectives of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan, compatible with surrounding uses and in line with the city's vision for the TOD district. The location of the site, almost adjacent to regional and local mass transit, will encourage transit use and reduce the number of trips that a regular multifamily development would typically generate. It will also further objectives 1.5 and 1.7 of the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. The site is served by Pump Station 0411, which is in okay status. Prior to development, the applicant will need to submit plans to the Public Works Department in order to determine the required infrastructure improvements. Miami-Dade County Public Schools concurrency analysis indicate that at this time, all school levels have sufficient capacity available to serve the proposed development. Since the development meets the adopted level of service and is consistent with the comprehensive plan, the land use change is recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a presentation.
I'm opening it.
So we're here on behalf of Beck Housing Trust, LLC, the contract purchaser for the property located at 1067 East 25th Street. I'm joined this evening by Francisco Espinoza and Oscar Moreno from Beck Housing Trust, LLC, my colleague Melissa Tapenez-Yahuez. We're excited to be before you this evening with a mixed-use transit-oriented development consistent with the city's vision for the Hialeah Transfer Station Subdistrict. As you can see on the aerial on the screen, the boundaries of the Hialeah Transfer Station Subdistrict are noted in blue, and the subject property is in yellow, immediately abutting the Hialeah Transfer Station. The property is also just steps away from premier destinations and employment in the city, such as Hialeah Hospital, Leon Medical Centers, and the Hialeah Park Casino. On the next slide, you'll see, as you may recall, in 2016, our firm collaborated with the city to establish TOD legislation. The goal was to promote pedestrian-friendly mixed-use development within walking distance of high-capacity rapid transit stations. The property is within the Hialeah Transfer Station TOD subdistrict and designated high-rise and civic. In order to avoid a wholesale rezoning and ensure development occurs consistent with the city's vision, applicants must come before you in order with a proposed plan in order to change the property's land use and zoning designations to TOD. And that's what we're doing, why we're here before you today. On the next slide, you'll see that the property is currently designated commercial and zoned C2. And as you'll see on the screen, the properties to the west have almost already been changed to TOD, which is exactly what we seek to do through these applications. The subject property is a key piece of the Hialeah Transfer Station TOD subdistrict, not only because it immediately abuts the transfer station, but because approval of this application will serve to encourage the development of similar mixed-use projects in this district. So in order to develop the property with a mixed-use project, the applicant seeks a land use plan amendment from commercial to TOD, a rezoning from C2 to TOD, and a variance to permit up to 10 stories in height where 8 stories are permitted. The variance is very important because it will allow the applicant to maximize density next to a high-capacity transit station. And the variance will also facilitate a diverse mix, including unit mix, including studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units, and the necessary parking and amenities that today's market requires. This will ensure that students, professionals, and small families can find a home at the property. Notably, the abutting property to the west secured a similar variance in 2018, so the variance will also ensure compatibility with the surrounding area. On the next slide, you'll see the existing conditions at the property. It's currently developed with an outdated shopping center. And then on the next slide, you'll see that the goal is to advance the city's vision for the area and develop the property with a modern mixed-use development just steps away from a tri-county public transit station. The property's unique location abutting the Hialeah transfer station is an opportunity to encourage the use of public transit and revitalize the area with new and modern development. What's interesting about the Hialeah transfer station is that it connects the tri-rail system all the way from West Palm Beach down to Miami International Airport with the county's metro rail system, which connecting residents from Medley on the west side of the county all the way to the south to the Dayland station, including stops in employment hubs like the Health District, downtown Miami, and Brickell. So we envision the property being home to professionals who either work at Hialeah Hospital, Leon Medical Centers, or in the industrial sector in the area, or someone who wants to be 20 to 30 minutes from downtown, the Health District, and the airport, but without needing to get in a car. So on the next slide, you'll see that the development program is consistent with other projects that were approved in the area. And it includes 124 residential units, 3 live-work units, and ground floor commercial uses in a 10-story building. The applicant's also providing 130 parking spaces on site. So on the screen, on the next slide, you'll see the proposed site plan. The live-work units are proposed on the west side of the property, while the commercial area is at the corner of East 11th and 25th, which will really activate that corner. On the next slide is another conceptual rendering. This is of the lobby entrance along East 25th. The next slide is a rendering of the corner of East 25th and 11th Avenue. And then we have one more rendering, and that's a pedestrian perspective walking along East 25th towards the Tri-Rail station. These applications are consistent with your city code and comprehensive plan. The project proposes to create a vibrant ground floor commercial space fueled by the residential uses on the upper floors. And as a result, approval of these applications will revitalize the area and attract professionals and empty nesters seeking modern accommodations in a mixed-use setting in close proximity to public transportation and high-paying jobs. So to conclude, this project checks all the boxes that the city envisioned when creating TOD legislation. It's mixed-use development with multimodal transit facilities, pedestrian-oriented amenities, shared parking, and a high-quality building design. So with all that in mind, we ask that you recommend approval of these applications to the City Council consistent with Deborah's recommendation. And our team is available for any questions. We respectfully request reserve time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. I must make one comment. You couldn't have picked a more appropriate place for a transportation hub.
Yeah.
You got Metro Rail and you got Tri-Rail and you got plenty of buses.
Yeah.
Good deal. One question. These renderings that you put forth, those pictures, are those pictures or are those illuminated picture like a neon sign or?
No, they're what we're proposing for the site. I would say they're accurate. Um, Are you referring to the art?
Right, the art, yes.
It's just art. I
Just art.
imagine it'll, the design may continue to evolve a bit, but the idea is to create a modern, what nowadays, what most people seeking, housing want, right? Like more
Right.
modern amenities and design.
No, my question is, and I'm sure you're going to follow up on this. The art, the picture itself will most likely be like backlit or softly lit from the front. It's not going to be, my question, is it going to be like an LED screen that's going to be projecting and illuminating the whole neighborhood? Even though it is an industrial, but there is residential across the street.
No, so any signage will comply with the city code, and if at any time a variance or something is required, we'd of course be back before you. But I see where
You
you're
see
going.
you see what I'm
Yes,
trying.
absolutely. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a feel for the light pollution, light intrusion on the
No, it's meant to
surrounding
be
neighborhood.
art, not highly illuminated, and anything would obviously be in compliance with the code.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Please.
This is not low-income housing. This is like,
No, it's
Okay.
market rate.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I commend you. I love the project. Beautiful. And with the art, I'm all for the art. The more art that we put in the city, I love it even more. Just if you could use local artists, that'd be even better, There's a lot of local artists here that I've been trying to do some. But my question is to Deborah, you say the pump in that area is okay, for me?
Yeah. We verify every time that someone comes.
But
that it's in
is that like a grade, okay as a grade, or is there?
No, okay means that it has capacity for more development.
Okay. Thank you. Congratulations.
Great.
I
Thank you.
really like the project
Any
a
more
lot.
comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question? Anyone in the electronic audience, comment or question? Okay, closes the part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
motion to approve. Second.
Okay, so motion was Mr. Iglesias and Mr. Ulloa?
No.
No, Mr. Casanova. Okay, so we have both of them. And who's second?
You're welcome. You see, it's so good that you got 3 motions. You see that? Yeah. You need to bring a couple more. You need to bring a couple more projects like this, and especially in that area. I'm really excited about it, developing that area. It's going to look beautiful.
You're working on it.
Yeah. That's great. These little 2-story apartments, this, I could really get along
The only
with this.
problem
It's
is
great.
you don't come by often enough.
Yeah. Now, if you could start on Palm Avenue too, that'd be great.
Hey, don't give him too much. Okay.
We are working. Well, on Palm Avenue, you already have it. You have the MVD, so. Can come in.
Okay, so motion, Mr. Iglesias and Mr. Casanova, second, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Casanova?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa?
Double yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you. Okay, we have a request from the applicant. Bring it up to the board, see what the board says. They also have on item number 3, that is basically the same property. There is, we do need to close this item, but, this type of meeting. But is the board going to be okay in moving this item number 3 forward one?
Of course.
Okay? All right,
Thank you.
great. So that being said, this will close the land use part of the hearing, and we will now open the planning and zoning meeting. Everybody's been sworn in, so you're good to go. Let her read the
All right, so item number 1, approval of Planning and Zoning Board summary agenda of April 13th, 2022, as submitted. I need a motion and a second.
A motion to approve?
Okay.
Okay, so motion, Mr. Casanova, second, Mr. Ramon. Mr. D. Perez?
yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa?
Yes.
Mr. Casanova?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Item has been approved. A written decision and resolution will be prepared and presented for review to the City Council. The City Council is authorized to affirm with conditions, or override the decisions by resolution. After the resolution is adopted, contact a member of the city clerk's office to obtain a copy of the final decision and resolution. Upon your receipt of the final decision and resolution, contact the building department to obtain your required building permit. Summary minutes or a copy of the audio file of the proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to the Sitting Council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the City Council at its scheduled meeting of Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. Item number 3, rezoning property from C2 Liberal Retail Commercial District to TOD Transit Oriented Development District, and variance permit to allow 10 stories where 8 stories is the maximum allowed. Property located at 1067 East 25th Street, Hialeah Zone, C2 Liberal Retail Commercial District. Applicant Beck Housing Trust LLC.
Okay, we will need you to identify yourself once more, please.
Maritza Haro with offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard.
Thank you.
So the property in this application is located at the northwest intersection of East 25th Street and East 10th Avenue, across the Hialeah Transfer Tri-Rail Metro Rail Station, and within the Hialeah Transfer TOD. Concurrently with a land use amendment application from commercial to TOD, the applicant is requesting rezoning to TOD in order to make land use and zoning consistent, and a variance to allow 10 stories where 8 stories is the maximum allowed. The proposed 10-story mixed-use building is proposed to have on the ground floor a 3,150 square feet retail component at the corner fronting the station, a main lobby, and 3 live work units facing East 25th Street. Vehicular access to a parking garage will be provided on East 10th Avenue and East 25th Street, with 9 parking spaces on the ground floor. The second and third floors of the building will accommodate a parking garage with 45 parking spaces on each floor. The fourth floor will combine 12 apartments in the exterior perimeter of the building and 18 parking spaces in the interior. The fifth floor will have a lounge, gym, and swimming pool and 17 apartments, and floors 6 to 10 will have 19 apartments on each floor. In summary, the building will have 3,150 square feet of commercial space, 3 live work units, 14 465 square feet studios, 84 one-bedroom units ranging from 565 square feet to 720 square feet, and 26 890 square feet two-bedroom units, for a total of 124 units and 117 parking stalls. 16 tandem parking spaces are planned, however, they are not allowed by code, and the fire department will not approve them out of safety concerns, and the applicant is working on redesigning those spaces, so maybe they will have more spaces at the end. In the TOD district, the parking requirement is 1 parking space for units up to 1 bedroom and 1.5 spaces for units with more than 1 bedroom, 1 parking space for live work units, and 1 parking space for each 3,500 square feet of commercial area. Accordingly, the parking requirement is 3 parking spaces for the live work units, 4 parking spaces for the commercial component, 98 parking spaces for the studios and 1-bedroom apartments, and 39 parking spaces for the 2-bedroom apartments, for a total of 144 parking spaces. The 27 parking spaces deficit needs to be mitigated with off-site parking or payment in lieu as provided in Section 98-1545D of the Code. The 10-story height variance request is consistent with the approvals in the Hialeah Transfer TOD, where all the proposed high-rises rezoned to TOD were granted a variance to allow 10 stories. Therefore, the request shall be approved since it will be consistent with planned future development in the same block and beyond. The rezoning to TOD shall be approved because it will make land use and zoning consistent, and because it advances the purpose of the TOD district by providing a compact, pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use development within walking distance to high-capacity rapid transit station, and will enhance livability and mobility in the area. Recommendation approval.
Thank you, Mrs. George. Any comments or questions?
We would just like to incorporate by reference our presentation from the land use agenda, item LU1.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board? No? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question? Anyone in the electronic audience? Close to the part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion, Mr. Iglesias, second, Mr. Ulloa. Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Casanova?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you all. Great to see you.
I do have one question for the property owners. Too bad you don't own the whole block.
Yeah.
They're working on it?
They're working on it.
Oh, okay.
Good luck with that.
Because I know for a fact that, is it from 9th?
The other block is not only the fronting 25th Street,
Right.
but the whole block is owned by the same person. Yeah.
Mm.
That is coming next week because there is one last lot that is still R1.
Exactly.
And they are coming to change the land use and zoning. Yes.
Yeah, I know that the very one last little dealer, auto dealer or something in the corner.
No,
there.
the auto dealer is still there. It's a family-owned business and there is problem between the
But that,
owners.
so,
No, that
so
is
the
still
future,
there.
the future for that neighborhood is basically from 9th all the way to the tracks. Big developments like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right
we-
now, it's just there.
We need more projects like this
Yeah.
in that
Well,
area.
we have two apartments, 12 units apartment that were completed on 24th Street. There are 2 or 3 underway of that scale.
Right.
And the building on the other street, there is the plans for the one that is north of the station are almost here, so it's moving. You
Yeah.
don't see it yet, but you will see.
No,
it
no,
soon.
but physically right now, that whole street from 9th east to the track, where the old gas company used to be and all of that. It really does need,
Yeah.
And also with the monies that you will deposit into the parking improvement fund, we are working on trying to create like a linear park down the metro rail. So the metro rail will look nicer than what it looks now.
Great.
good job. Thank you.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
we
Bye.
can go to number 2 now?
Yes. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the City Council at a scheduled meeting of Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. Item number 2, final decision to allow interior west side setback of 5.7 feet where 6 feet are required, and allow rear setback of 14.8 feet where 20 feet are required for an existing terrace to be legalized. Property located at 780 Southeast 5th Place, Hialeah zoned R1, one family district. Applicant Justo A. Diaz.
Justo Díaz? Va a ser en español, ¿eh? Nombre y dirección, por favor.
Justo Díaz, 780 South East 5 Play,
Ok.
Hialeah, Florida 33010.
Ella va a leer el caso a récord en inglés, después se lo lee en español y vamos a discutirlo en inglés, en español, como sea, pero si hay que traducirlo, yo le pido una cosa que diga una oración, no una oración de religiosa, pero que usted diga una oración, pause, para poderlo traducir, ¿entiende? Para ir Okay.
The property in this application is a single-family home located on the south side of Southeast 5th Place, west of Southeast 8th Avenue. The site is improved with a single-family house and has an open code compliance case for building without permit. The applicant submitted plans to the city to correct the violation, and it was noticed that setback adjustments for an open terrace were needed. Accordingly, he's requesting an adjustment of the west side setback to 5.7 feet where 6 feet are required, and rear setback of 14.8 feet where 20 feet are required. The reduced setbacks could be approved with the condition that the terrace remains open on 3 sides. Let me translate it for you. La propiedad en esta aplicación es una vivienda unifamiliar ubicada en el lado sur de del Southeast 5 Place, al oeste de la Southeast 8 Avenida. La propiedad está mejorada con una vivienda unifamiliar y tiene un caso abierto con el Departamento de Código por construcción sin permiso. El aplicante sometió planos a la ciudad para corregir la violación y durante esa revisión se notó que había unos ajustes de los retiros obligatorios para una terraza que eran necesarios. Es por esto que el aplicante está solicitando un ajuste del retiro lateral del lado oeste de 5.7 pies, donde 6 pies son requeridos, y un ajuste del retiro posterior a 14.8 pies, donde 20 pies son requeridos. Los retiros reducidos pueden ser aprobados con la condición que la terraza permanezca abierta o en sus 3 lados.
Okay. ¿Entendió?
Sí, perfectamente.
Do you have any comment or questions? ¿Alguna pregunta, un comentario sobre el caso?
No.
No comments or questions. Anyone comments or questions from the board?
Motion to approve.
Wait. ¿Usted entiende que se le está imponiendo una condición de dejar la terraza abierta?
Sí, no.
You understand that the terrace must be open-sided, okay? Okay. Comments or questions from the audience? None heard. Anyone in the electronic audience? None heard. We do have a motion. Mr. Jimenez?
It's a motion, Mr. Jimenez, second, Mr. Ulloa. Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa? Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Casanova?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Item has been approved with condition.
Ok, se le aprobó su petición. Necesita regresar frente al Consejo el 24 de mayo. Aquí mismo. Aquí mismo. Será un martes, 24 de mayo.
A las
Ok,
7 de
a
la
las
noche.
7.
Esa es una reunión más larga, así que la recomendación es que cene antes de venir, porque a veces se prolonga como hasta las 10:30 o 11 de la noche. Así que venga con tiempo.
La reunión empieza a las 7, pero son cosas y asuntos de la ciudad financiera. El asunto de usted viene siendo al final, la segunda parte de la reunión. Perdón, no tiene que estar aquí a las 7, puede estar a 7:30, 7:45. Que...
Bueno, puede venir para escuchar.
Bueno, sí puede venir.
enterarse de otras cosas.
Pero le digo, porque si viene temprano. Okay. Basically, just advising them that, about the time frame of
Yeah,
the,
it's long, yeah.
of the council, that it does take a little bit longer.
Okay. Item number 4, rezoning property from R1, one family district to R33, multiple family district. And variance permit to allow front setback of 21.8 feet where 25 feet are required. Allow street side setback of 6 feet where 15 feet are required. Allow rear setback of 11.6 feet where 20 feet are required. Allow total lot coverage of 31% when 30% is the maximum allowed. And allow 23% pervious area where 30% is the minimum required. Property located at 782 East 37th Street, Hialeah, zoned R1, one family district. Applicant Cesar Mestre, Esquire.
Good evening, Cesar Mestre with law offices at 8105 Northwest 155th Street, Miami Lakes, Florida.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. The property in this application is located at the southwest intersection of East 8th Avenue and East 37th Street. The site has a frontage of 100 feet and depth of 136.63 feet. The site is part of a bigger tract as replatted in 1928, amending the original 1926 plat. The entire tract includes 3 40-feet lots, while the site includes 2 lots and a half from the original 1926 subdivision. Since the existing house on the site was built in 1950, it's very likely that no replatting will be required since the size of the lot did not change after January 1, 1958, constituting this fact a replatting exception. In October 2021, the city granted a land use change from low-density residential to medium-density residential under City of Hialeah, Florida, Ordinance 21-133. At that time, the applicant expressed his intention of redeveloping the site with a new 1- and 2-story, 7-unit, 2-bedroom multifamily building in compliance with parking and landscaping requirements. The proposed layout places the building close to Lejeune Road, with the one-story portion of the building separated 22.5 feet from the east property line that is adjacent to a single-family home, and the two-story portion separated 63 feet. At this time, the applicant is before the city requesting rezoning from R1 to R33 in order to make land use and zoning consistent, and variances to allow 21.8 front setback where 25 feet are required, 6 feet street side setback where 15 feet are required, 11.6 rear setback where 20 feet are required, 31% lot coverage where 30% is the maximum allowed, and 23% pervious area where 30% is the minimum required. Although the medium density residential land use and R33 will be null to the immediate area, the fact that the property is facing Lejeune Road, a principal arterial road with heavy traffic load, makes the site unsuitable for single-family residential use. The proposed multifamily use would be appropriate as a buffer between low density and Lejeune Road, mainly because of its proposed low scale compatible with the low density residential neighborhood. Therefore, the requested rezoning from R1 to R33 shall be approved. The reduced setbacks can be approved since they result from the effort of keeping the building separated as much as possible from the single-family homes to the west and south. The lot coverage request can also be approved because it is minimal and the drainage requirement will be fulfilled by engineering means. It's important to point out that, as analyzed during the land use amendment review, the site meets the adopted level of service standards. However, prior to development, the property owner, at his expense, will be required to provide a hydraulic analysis to the Public Works Department, build a sewer main extension, and construct right-of-way improvements as might be required by the Streets Department. Recommendation approval.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Mr. Mestre, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By way of reminder, we were here last year where you approved the land use amendment, and that was going back to the drawing board and redoing the original project, which we had proposed probably a year before that, which was a commercial or doctor's office facility on this site. We filed the application, we brought that before the board, and we listened to the concerns. We spoke to the client and came back with this different proposal, which we believe is much more consistent and beneficial to the area. Mr. Chairman, I know that you're very familiar with this property, and you had concerns about the traffic and the commercial development on that lot. So if we can go to the next slide. This is the property on the corner of East 8th Avenue and 37th Street. It is the corner of 782 right there. As you can see here, the property directly across the street is been rezoned to residential office, and we know that it was purchased by a doctor and that their intentions are to put a doctor's office there. And that's why my client had come in originally wanting to put his practice there. He's a doctor also. As a matter of fact, Dr. Alejandro Pla, who's the principal, is on the Zoom and available if anybody has any questions. Next slide. It's the corner lot. You see it has a very old house there. And it was a challenge because we wanted to make sure that we didn't impede or intrude into the neighborhood. Next slide. So the architect, Oscar Gonzalez, who's done many projects in Hialeah, came up with this layout. We have the parking closest to the single family home to the west. Then we have the building moved as far east to Lejeune Road as possible, and also as far south as possible. That makes for some of the variances on the setbacks that we're asking for. But we figured this would be a good fit for the neighborhood. That way we're away from the residential areas. We're away from the corner, which I know the chairman had a concern about the triangle of vision. So we make sure we were taking care of that, and that'll be, if there's any change that needs to be done because of that, obviously we'll take that into account. There's enough parking provided. This is going to be, the proposal is for 7 two-bedroom units. There's 16 parking spaces that are provided. So it's going to be 2 per unit plus the extra 2. Next slide. This is the basic configuration of each unit. They're a good size. Next slide. And the 1-story portion, you have 1-story portion is the closest to the residential units. The 2 stories are going to be located on the Zoom. You go to the next slide. These are the renderings. Unfortunately, we don't have color renders at this point, but this is a basic rendering of what it's going to look like. It's a very modern, clean look that we know that Hialeah likes. So we think that this will be a definite improvement for the area. There's another rendering on the next slide. And based on the prior land use amendment, which was already approved, the recommendation of approval from staff, we'd be happy to answer any questions, and we ask you for a recommendation of approval today to help redevelop this area and bring some more living units to the city, which are greatly needed.
Thank you, Mr. Mestre. Any comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience with a comment or question on this item? Anyone in the electronic audience? Okay, Mr. Mestre, just give me 1 second. I just want to get an eyeful of your rendering here. Okay, west.
Well, it's an illustration of the facade.
Yeah, it's, yeah. So we can deny this because it's only a black and white, right? There's no color in here?
I think,
I will get some crayons real fast if you give me a couple of minutes.
I think they did a good job. They are providing.
They did,
the parking,
they did.
The landscaping, the low scale of.
And you're right, Mr. Messer. I showed a lot of concerns with that intersection there. Very familiar with it.
Yes.
And hey, you see, when you put your mind together, you know.
We listen. If I know you guys really like that prior 10-story one, if that's the way you guys want to go, I think I can talk to my client. And,
Not there.
that was really pretty. That was a nice project.
Actually, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's. I'm good with it. Again, I'm going to. I know it's not your item, but the one directly across the street to the north,
right,
will most likely fall under the same guideline as.
Yeah, they will. I am already in conversation.
Yeah.
They want to do the same thing.
Particularly, see, you have the advantage that you're on the south side, so you're after the traffic. They're on the north side, so if they're not careful, they will block the view of the oncoming traffic southbound on Lejeune.
And I don't know how close they are, but I know I've done some properties along Lejeune that are like 1 foot off of the main road. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's some properties there that are right on the sidewalk.
On the sidewalk. Exactly.
On the sidewalk itself, yeah. In fact, the sidewalk is their bedroom window right there. Okay, good deal. No comments or questions from anyone? What's the pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second that motion.
Motion, Mr. Casanova, second, Mr. Iglesias. Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa? Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias?
Yes.
Mr. Gamon?
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Casanova?
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Messer. It took a little bit, but it finally came through, huh?
We try to do what's right. So thank you very much. Appreciate the vote.
Thank you.
Item number 5, rezoning from R1, one family district to GUD, governmental use district, of property located at 815 West 75th Street, and special use permit to allow the expansion of the neighborhood business district overlay. Variance permit to allow residential use on the ground floor, where residential use is allowed above ground floor level. Allow 1,049 parking spaces where 1,544 parking spaces are required. And allow 19.8% pervious area where 30% is the minimum required. Property located at 7605 West 10th Avenue and 815 West 75th Street. Hialeah Zone, GUD, Governmental Use District, and R1, One Family District. Applicant Alejandro J. Arias, Esquire.
You don't look like Alejandro.
Nope. Older, not as good looking.
Hey, you said it.
Hugo Arzon offices at 701 Brickell Avenue. And I will let George
Thank you,
do
sir.
their thing.
The property in this application, Hoffman Gardens,
I know.
includes almost an entire block encompassing 14, let me give me 1 second, that I have nothing.
Where is Alex? I haven't seen him in a while.
Encompassing 14.96 acres of land situated between West 75th Street and West 77th Street, between West 8th Avenue and West 10th Avenue. The property's land use has been recently amended from major institutions to medium-density residential with the intention of redeveloping the site with a mixed-use development. The property is currently developed with affordable housing built in the early 1970s at an approximate density of 18 units per acre. The building's age and low density of the existing development compared to the urgent affordable housing need in the community calls for an efficient redevelopment of the site where 551 units are proposed to replace the 260 units. With that purpose in mind and in line with the city's vision of developing mixed-use lively communities under the MBD regulations, the applicant intends to redevelop the site including multiple multifamily and senior living facilities, having a daycare and grocery store. The proposed development will incorporate modern architecture, urban design elements, and lush landscaping that will enhance the visual appeal of the adjacent neighborhood. Because of the MBD regulations do not apply to properties with major institutions land use, the applicant requested land use change to medium density residential and now is before the city requesting rezoning to GOD to make the zoning consistent with the use and approval of the proposed use as required by Code Section 98-1332. The properties across the street on West 77th Street are zoned R4 and were developed as townhouses in the mid-1960s. The properties across the street on West 10th Avenue are zoned R3 and were developed in 1970 at a density of 48 units per acre, exceeding high-density residential land use limitation, and R1 on the McDonald's Park site. The properties on the south side of West 75th Street are zoned R3 and R2 and were developed in the 1970s at a density of 40 units per acre, also exceeding high-density residential land use limitation. The properties on the east side of West 8th Avenue are zoned R1 and are developed as single-family homes. The conceptual redevelopment proposal includes 9 new buildings ranging from 4 to 7 stories and is generally compatible with the adjacent neighborhood, except for the proposed 7-story mixed-use building proposed at the northwest corner of West 77th Street and West 8th Avenue. West 8th Avenue at this location has a truly residential character, and a mixed-use 7-story building, including a grocery store, would not be compatible with the existing setting. The 7-story building proposed at this location shall be replaced by a 4 to 5-story building as proposed at the southwest corner of West 8th Avenue and West 75th Street. It is recommended to the applicant to concentrate all commercial uses on West 10th Avenue that already has an intensive use and will allow the proposed grocery store to be the anchor to the retail stores. Since this project is at the early planning stages, the site plan could be rearranged and accommodate the proposed 551 units and 30,000 square feet of commercial space. Because this is a Hialeah Housing Authority property that will be developed in phases and funded through grants, there is ample time to reevaluate the layout of the site. In light of these considerations, the proposed development should be approved the special use permit to expand the MBD regulations to this site because it is compatible with existing zoning and development in the area, and because the site itself will be an activity node for the area. The requested rezoning to GUD shall be approved since it is consistent with the land use and use of the property. The proposed development will have 208 one-bedroom units, 214 two-bedroom units, and 129 three-bedroom units, and includes senior, workforce, and affordable units, and approximately 30,000 square feet of retail. The required parking is 1,487 parking spaces, and the applicant is proposing to build 1,049 parking spaces, assigning 1 space to the one-bedroom units, 1.5 spaces to the two-bedroom units, 2 spaces to the three-bedroom units, 83 parking spaces for guests, and 200 parking spaces for the commercial portion. Since the development includes senior and affordable housing units that have reduced parking demands, the mixed use will reduce trips from and to the site. The commercial parking spaces can be shared with the residential units, and on-street parking to supplement the proposed parking count. And along West 10th Avenue, there is also on-street parking. In light of these considerations, the reduced parking variance could be approved. The applicant is also requesting to allow 19.8 pervious area where 30% is required, which could be approved since drainage will be managed through engineering means. Recommendation: approval subject to keeping buildings facing West 8th Avenue at a height of not exceeding 5 stories and without commercial use.
Thank you. Hugo?
Thank you again, Hugo Arza, 701 Brickell Avenue. I'm joined today by my colleague, Alessandria San Roman, as well as by Mr. Julio Ponce and Frank Mestre of the Hialeah Housing Authority. This project should seem familiar to all of you because we came before you a few weeks back for the land use change that Ms. Storch just referenced to medium density. So a lot of the pictures and the vision for the project should be fairly familiar to all of you, but we do have a short presentation. It has color renderings. So if that sways the vote more quickly, I'm happy to cut short my presentation, but we did get some color rendering. The first slide is an overview slide, and if actually, Giselis, can you take it back? So just to nip in the bud right now, we accept and appreciate Ms. Storch's recommendation of approval and accept her recommendation condition that we not place commercial or the 7-story building on the east side of the property and concentrate that intensity more on the west side. Mr. Ponce is on board with that. As she noted, this is a multi-phase project, so we're going to tweak certain elements as we come in for future permits. And so we'll make those changes, but we can make that commitment and bake that into the approvals if we're fortunate this evening and before the council. So what that would mean is that what you have sort of at the bottom of the screen there, which is 5- and 6-story buildings, that's on 10th Avenue, would that be the area with the taller buildings and the commercial impacts? And then as you move sort of farther back in the picture on the right side, that would be the residential. It would only be residential. It wouldn't have commercial, and it wouldn't go as high up, in a nod to the fact that on the other side of the avenue there, you do have some single family homes. So next slide. So I'm not going to read what the Hialeah Housing Authority does. All of you who sit up there and are residents of the city appreciate the work that's done, with senior housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, an incredible need. I'm sure you all saw the 77 articles in the last 2 days about housing costs in Miami-Dade County, 30% year over year. Once again, it's patently unaffordable for many, many families to live in our community. So the Housing Authority is doing its part, and this project is part of revitalizing what is an underutilized piece of property and really adding density to it to try and, address some portion of it. We're not going to get all the way there with one project, but we can certainly make a dent. Next slide. Property location, again, familiar to all of you, between 77th and 75th, West 77th and West 75th, between 10th and 8th Avenue, approximately 15-acre parcel. Currently improved, and we'll see some pictures, currently improved with approximately 250 Hialeah Housing Authority units of different types, but of a much older vintage. A lot of units that were built in the 70s. And so, it's really time for a refresh. And to be very clear, and we, I think, discussed this briefly during the land use change, obviously by phasing this, we will not displace any of the residents that live there without giving them options to where they're going to go. I mean, fortunately, Hialeah Housing has, number of projects throughout the city. They can move folks around, not just within this property, but also, when the time comes, into other properties as this one gets redeveloped and then people move back in. So no net loss at any point, certainly, of the residents who live there today, and no fear on that front. Next slide. So there are some of the pictures, and you can see, obviously, buildings from quite a while ago that, I think, frankly, can use a refresh and at the same time increase the density that we have in this area. So that's what this proposal will do. Next slide. Current land use, as of a few weeks back, just a month ago or so, medium density residential, as Deborah noted, in order to apply the neighborhood business district overlay, the NBD. That was one of the prerequisites. So we've already gone through that, flew through with unanimous recommendation by your body and then unanimous approval by the council. And so now the zoning is currently GU, and you'll see that we are seeking a rezoning in order to implement this project. Next slide.
Let me point out something. There is a piece of the parcel that is missing there.
On the bottom right
The
corner.
bottom
Yeah.
right, the property is zoned R1, and that is part of the application.
Yeah. So it's the only parcel, I noted that when the only parcel that isn't is there's the one parcel in, exactly. That is owned by someone else. Hialeah Housing doesn't own that parcel. It is developed with multifamily, but it's not owned
But
by
I think it's also affordable housing, no?
I don't.
No. Oh.
Yeah, I think that one's just just another project in the city. Next slide are your application requests, and I won't, repeat a lot of what Ms. Storch said. We have a recommendation of approval for all of these. Rezoning the property, the special use permit for the NBD, and then variances. A and C are quick, and I think, obviously, pretty common with projects. I mean, engineering and drainage requires that you contain all your water. So the C is one that's pretty common these days. A is something that the city likes to see. They want to, they want that mix of uses. So allowing residential and mixed use buildings to be all of that. B is the parking variance, and I've been before you with any number of types of parking variances over the years for different kinds of projects. But I think Ms. Storch hit it on the head. I mean, this is a project that's going to have senior housing. In fact, the first two phases, and we'll get to it momentarily, are both senior housing phases. It's going to have workforce and affordable housing. We are allocating sufficient parking, as she indicated, 1 to 1 bedrooms, 1.5 for 2 bedrooms, and then two spaces for the 3-bedroom units. Have excess parking, can share parking with the commercial uses, which tend to be busier during the day, and then at night, parking fields are empty and they can be used. But most importantly, above all of that, you've got folks who manage thousands of units and deal with their residents and their parking needs, and are very confident that if they can do it in much smaller locations with a lot less parking than 1,000 and some odd spaces, that their years of experience of dealing with it is something that they bring to the table. So, we're confident that this can work, given the type of use that we have before you. Next slide. Project highlights again, and we've hit on that, 551 units. So a little over twice as many as you currently have there today, 30,000 square feet of commercial space there for the benefit of the surrounding community, but also helping, the folks who live there be able to just walk across from McDonald Park. We've had lots of conversations about really trying to find a way to integrate that. I know Mr. Ponce has spoken a lot with the administration here about ways in which the park and that West 10th Avenue area that I highlighted on the first slide can really, sort of complement each other. A lot of the people that come to the park might be able to, that's where the retail is going to be, might be able to come across and really making sure that it's a safe passage. And so a lot of great ideas for what we're gonna do, but most importantly, doubling or a little more than doubling the housing stock, the affordable workforce and senior housing stock of the city, I think is probably the first item on the list of the project highlights. Next. So the overall site plan, I apologize, this is a little convoluted. Let's go to the next one. We couldn't figure out how to remove. So I'm focusing on the next one. This is West 10th Avenue because the two arrows point to the two corners, the northwest and southwest corners of the property, which are vacant today and are going to be the first two phases, or phase 1A and 1B of this project. And both will be senior, 5-story senior housing buildings. And that's where Hialeah Housing will kick off. That's where the phasing will start. with, and these parcels are actually empty today. They're vacant parcels. So there will be no displacement initially. It'll just be adding inventory even before they start migrating to the east. I guess you can go back, sorry, Giselle, I guess to make just the broader point of the proposed overall site plan. You know, you then see as it kind of morphs that you'll end up with a series of buildings and then, you know, sort of a central, you know, area open with open space and an open area for recreational purposes and just green space and open space for the residents of this community. And then that's the property, that green property is the property that, again, this has all sorts of layers. This is an architectural rendering. That green property is developed. That's the parcel that Hialeah Housing doesn't own. That's the multifamily parcel. This is got a lot of layers, and I couldn't figure out how to work CAD. We don't have CAD. It's some sort of architectural thing. So yeah, I know it's tough. Second-rate shop that we're running. So, but I think this gives you a sense of the entire project and what we're proposing to do. And then if you go to the next slide, just to again emphasize that we're starting with the first phase on West 10th Avenue with the senior housing component. And I think that if Mr. Mestre can find the funding, they want to kick that off by this summer sometime or sooner after. He's nodding either fall. He's already buying himself a month
It's
or two.
another Mestre.
But there's a great need for it, so it'll happen quickly. Next slide. Yeah, so here we're back to the pretty pictures where we started out, and again, this is West 10th and working its way, and you know, you can kind of see just the modern architecture and just really a revitalization of this 15-acre tract. Next, and here are some additional pictures. The bottom right is on West 10th. That would be an entrance into the community, so to speak, and then you would have retail on the bottom. That's what would front McDonald Park. It's a really neat feature, and then it would have, you know, sort of our housing residential above it. So a lot of, you know, really neat, you know, elements from a design and architecture standpoint. Besselo Design Group is doing this project. They're based out of Tampa, St. Pete, and they work on a lot of housing authority projects and really understand the need to create like an inclusive community. And so we're seeing some of the fruits of that labor from what they do around the country brought here to Hialeah. And I think that's it. I'm not mistaken. So again, we teed this up a few weeks back with the land use change, and so now we're before you with the additional zoning requests. We enjoy Ms. Storch's recommendation, which we thank her for. We accept her condition, and we'll work with her to concentrate the commercial onto the west side of the property and not place such a tall building on the east side of the property. But we'll do that in the course of the, you know, ensuing phases. But otherwise, we would be happy to answer questions and respectfully ask for your recommendation of approval this evening. Thank you.
Once approved, you will break ground on the existing empty lots.
Correct. That's the first phase. The northwest and southwest corners on
The
10th Avenue.
the two that you break ground there and do your thing, and then now you do have some existing tenants there.
No, there's nothing there.
No, throughout the,
Oh, yeah, of course.
obviously they're empty lots.
Those
I'm
two are
talking
empty
about-
lots. You're saying in the balance of the property,
Right,
absolutely.
right.
It is a working housing,
Correct. To my understanding from the last meeting is that, and you even said it yourself, there will be some temporary displacement of the tenants while the renovation. Is it going to be renovated, or is it going to be demolished and built up?
Yeah,
from the-
it's all proposed to be demolished. Again, the first phase are on 2 vacant lots. Nobody gets moved.
Right.
You know, we put up a construction fence, we do our thing, we bring in some, you know, senior citizens, senior housing, and we develop that. Subsequent phases will absolutely require demolishing, and that's why I made that point early on. The
Right.
residents will be, I mean, none of this is going to happen from one day to the next or even
No.
1 month to the next. This will be several months out, and the authority will work with residents to find suitable alternative, and you know, once it's all built up again, we'll have twice as much housing at this
Right.
location to reaccommodate anybody else.
Okay, yeah, I
think Mr. Ponce would like to add something.
I would just hate to see them, you know, and I know the history that it's not, I know for a fact you're not going to let it happen.
No.
You know, to just say, there's a door, and then when we're done, come back, that you will make the necessary arrangements to relocate and possibly even relocate them back if need be, correct?
Julio Ponce, 75 East, 6th Street, the Director of the Housing Authority. And this is the beauty. Except for the vacant lands, all that is public housing.
Right.
So HUD allows us that when we do something like this, that we issue vouchers to all those families to get into the Section 8 voucher program.
Okay,
So they will be all issued vouchers if the plan is build these two first, then build the corner of 8 and 7. And when we go to knock down, let's say the first three buildings, which are townhouses today, possibly move this group into that building. So there'll be some transfer of that, but we have to offer them a voucher. They have then the right to go out and look for a unit out of the system into the voucher system, which is a whole different program. When we rebuild, we have to give them the first right of refusal.
right.
Historically, in other housing projects over the country, they don't come back because they're already someplace else. They're in a program that they could move anywhere. If they were to transfer someday to New York, they have that ability to port out to New York. So the Section 8 program is much better than the public housing program.
Okay.
So that's an option. So no one will be displaced. Everyone will have great options to move out with a voucher, and they would have the option to move in. So it's not affordable housing that we are doing when it comes to the guts of it, which is the public housing development, which is the center of the two vacant lands are going to be elderly affordable. That's a whole different program. But when we get to public housing, no one's going to be displaced.
Okay, and they will, like I said, they'll get first bid at
Coming back. Yeah,
coming
definitely.
back.
Definitely.
It'll be up to them
150%.
based on availability.
Yes.
Okay, one more question.
Mhm.
As far as the progress, the building progress is concerned, you're gonna do, let's say, the two empty lots first. How many buildings is there in the whole,
I think I meant
9 buildings?
I know, yeah.
Yeah, so just as, just indulge me in this. So let's say that you build the 2 vacant lots first and you start doing your due diligence from the existing tenants, offering them to come in.
Not in the first 2 phases because it's a whole different program.
Okay,
That's the thing. Right, because when we get to the center that we demolish and rebuild by phases. We're not going to do all 200 at once.
No, that's the question right there.
We
By
currently
phases.
have townhomes scattered through the 14 acres. So we will knock down 3 townhouse buildings, which have 9 units each.
Okay.
So in essence, we're not moving too many people. Once we build a 5-story building, I've got now the second phase that I can move everybody into that one.
Right.
Through again, we have the same option of the Section 8 voucher. So at the end of the day, some people will stay, some people will take advantage of the voucher program and leave. Let me address the 2 vacant lands. So just so you can have a general idea of the whole thing. That is affordable elderly, has nothing to do with public housing. So what I've been able to do over the last few years is secure funding so far. Okay. And the legislature was able to get me 3.9 in this budget. The governor still doesn't have the budget signed, but as soon as he signs the budget, that's there. The city has allocated 2.5 million of home dollars. The county, the current mayor and new county commissioner Rene Garcia in Steve's Mayor Bobo, let's call it officially. Mayor Bobo's old administration was able to give me 250,000. Then they added another 250. So now when Rene Garcia became commissioner, they funded that 500,000. And then about, I would say 3-4 months ago, Commissioner Higgins in the county allocated $26 million from the Affordable Housing Trust. It turned out to be $2 million for each district, or each county commission has 13 districts. So Renee Garcia's office gave us the 2 million allocated to District 13. So we actually right now have about $9.8 million in either federal, home, which is the home dollars, county and state dollars.
So the funding is there.
The funding, yeah, I'm gonna have to go to the bank and get another 7 million for the first 86 units. But again,
Pocket change.
pocket change. If you're looking at $180
Right.
million project, yeah, it's pocket change, but it's money. So our goal and the commitment that I have from our representatives and our senators is that next year, they're gonna try to put the same amount of money into the budget for Lot B, which will be the 8th Avenue and 7-7. So by the time we start these two buildings, I'm already looking for funding for the next project. And then once we build those three, then we get into what I call the gut, which is the public housing townhomes, to start knocking them down and rebuilding, and that'll all be the transfer stuff. So as I think I try to make it as simple as possible, because I sometimes get confused. The funding that I'm getting from the state and from the county and all that has its own funding and its own requirement and has nothing to do with public housing or Section 8. So it's a game that we have to play, and that's why we divided it over 9 phases to be able to accomplish and accommodate the whole thing.
Well, that's the meat and potatoes of the question right there, that you're not going to go in there and say, okay, everybody out, we're going to level everything, and then we're going to build, and when we're ready, you start moving. You're going to go by like phases, like the 2 lots first, then like 3 buildings, take them down, brand new, start moving the people in, and then making arrangements for the next 3 buildings, and so on and so forth.
Remember, I live in the city of Hialeah. If I knock them all down, I have to move out. So they'll be looking for me.
Oh, yeah.
So trust me.
Yeah.
We are very, and I'm actually doing this a block away from the mayor's house. So I
Oh, yeah.
gotta be,
Yeah.
very, very cautious, not only for that, for the neighborhood. And believe it or not, I love Deborah's recommendation of not doing commercial on 8th and going so high, because that was always my thought. But the architects are, this is where it goes good. So when Deborah put that in, I'm in, because I wanted residential on.
You want
on
kind
8th
of like
Avenue.
a buffer between.
And West 8th Avenue is so nice.
It is very
When
nice.
I drive there, it has trees, it has
Yeah, yeah.
nice houses.
And you got the
so-
church across the street. So
Yeah.
it's a nice blend. So I'm all for that. And we'll move the commercial over to 10th Avenue. And I think we'll be good.
One last thing. You got to have the comedor in there, right?
We do have a comedor somewhere in
Okay,
there.
it's somewhere in there.
And we do have the funding to expand our food program. So it'll be a good blend. It really will.
Good deal. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
No,
Any
thank
comments or
you.
questions? Thank you, Mr. Ponce. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for such a beautiful project like this. I understand that maybe most don't see that vision, but me, myself, born and raised in Hialeah housing, I see it as, here goes, a lot of families are gonna have a chance to live in the great city of Hialeah. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
All credit to them.
Well, again, that's a concern that, like displacing everyone at one shot. That's pretty harsh. So, good deal.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? Closes the part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve?
Second.
that motion?
Second, yeah.
Okay, motion.
Ooh, everybody's second.
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion, Mr. Jimenez, second, Mr. Iglesias and Mr. Casanova. Mr. D. Perez,
Absolutely.
Mr. Ramon,
Absolutely.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa, Mr. Casanova.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Mr. Ponce, it's been a pleasure seeing you again. Yeah. I'll never forget the time you met me out there in the middle of nowhere looking for your things, and I was working, and you say, hey, I know that guy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Miscellaneous items not requiring advertising. Item number 6, tentative plat of Flightway North.
Well, this is a plat that already came before us, like I would say 2015, 2016. And then it was abandoned. It's in the corner, in the northwest corner of 138 and 107. The thing is that the plat was abandoned, but the construction progressed, and there is one building that is completed and now is being occupied, and it has a temporary CO because of this, because they never finished the plat. So since so much time passed by, they have to restart the process. And there here are several conditions. I don't see any applicant there, but I want to read them into the records. And when they come and look for the plat that they have to take to the county, they will have this with them, and they will have to abide by this. So the Department of Water and Sewers comments. Our water and sewer main extensions serving the project are under construction. Public water and sewer utilities within the property require easement dedications. Sanitary sewer flow goes to pump station 04204 that is in okay status. Any change of use requires approval from the City of Hialeah, Department of Public Works, and DERM. Fire Department has no objections. Police Department, no objections. Streets Division. The City of Hialeah Streets Department does not object to the T-plat. However, the right-of-way dedication and all improvements on Northwest 107th Avenue will have to be coordinated with the Miami-Dade County Department of Transportation and Public Works. This is not a concern because this plat, the next step is to go to the county, and the Miami-Dade County of Transportation, the Department of Transportation and Public Works will review this, and they will make that a condition. Parks and Recreation have no objection, and the comment from the planning unit is that the plat needs to be final before future buildings start construction.
Okay.
The recommendation is to approval. This is a T-plat. It will come back as a final plat. to the
Now, you mentioned something at the beginning that this was an abandoned plot or an expired
It
plat?
was an abandoned plat because if you don't continue the action for a long time, so that's why they have to start.
But there's an existing building there.
There is a new building that was built there. And when someone builds something and they have to give them the CO, it comes to the zoning department. The zoning department reviews it and looks at all the boxes are checked. And in this case, when we looked at the box of the plat was not final. That's why they didn't get the CO. And it's a big thing not to get the CO in the property. So they have a temporary CO, but they need to continue and to get the CO.
So just for the record, even though they didn't have an active plat,
Yes,
okay, they went ahead and they built the building. Is the building occupied and working and legally?
legally.
So-
The TCO makes that legally. But
So-
this is temporary. You have to take care of this.
So that's what this is for, to
Exactly.
make the,
To
cross the Ts and dot the Is.
Exactly.
Okay. Comments or questions?
No.
Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? Close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second that motion?
Motion, Mr. Casanova, second, Mr. Iglesias. Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa, Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez. Yes. Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mr. Gamon.
Yes.
Item has been approved. Item number 7, old business.
Any old business?
No old business. Item number 8, new business.
Any new business? Well, I like to take a shot at our new business. Thank you, Mr. Ulloa, for your trinkets. I mean, that was,
Oh, just for when I get to know people more and I can see what they like. I know he's a barber.
I mean, no, it's,
I got something that I told him that I was gonna get him something with a barber.
it's cool, man. That's cool. That's
I
cool.
thought about you guys too, but I don't know what it is. I gotta get to know you guys a little better, I guess. The women were easy to do,
I got a comb.
And I saw Catwoman, and like Deborah with a little.
Okay,
Very nice, Jester.
anything else?
I have a question. We don't through the chair. We don't have to approve the last session?
We did.
Oh, we did? Oh, it was so fast, I didn't notice.
Yeah, it's. Okay. That being said, meeting is adjourned.
It's a struggle lately.